Democracy is flawed. She is not perfect. But democracy. I love you.
This is a channel where I read political articles and turn them into simple stories. So, if you'd like to hear some easy to follow stories that come from very complex academic works, stay with me on this channel, we'll explore them together. Today's opening question is, why are kings or queens are not ruling countries in the 21st century? Well, you're right, in some part of the world, like Saudi Arabia or the UAE, they still exist, but they are not exactly like the kings or queens we imagine from history. They are very modern rulers with Lamborghinis, Rolls-Royce, even private jets, private planes, yes. But here is the uprising part. Powerful kings or princes don't exist only in the Middle East. Would you believe that in more than 50 countries around the world you can still find them? Do you believe that? It's true. If you check Freedom House's reports, you'll see not free countries, places where people's freedom are heavily restricted. And yes, you're right again, those rulers aren't technically called kings. Instead, they're very powerful leaders, or sometimes just a small group of people who control everything and decide what's good or bad for the people.
Du meine Arbeit für richtig hältst, ob du glaubst, dass ich fleißig gewesen bin, dass ich gearbeitet habe, dass ich nicht in
We could simply say these countries are very centralized. Usually whatever one person says must be obeyed or followed by others. These powerful people in negative sense can manipulate laws, taxes, market, culture, practically everything. Fascinating, isn't that? Right. We usually call them dictators, or if you want the more scientific term, authoritarian leaders. Now, imagine. How would you feel if you live in a country where your choices and the choices of all citizens didn't matter at all? What matters is only one person wishes. Would you like it? Maybe. But people in more than 80 countries have already given their answers. They didn't like it, so they chose democracy. Were these people always free who chose the democracy? No. They once lived in monarchs, under religious leaders, dictators, anyone who restrict their freedom. But they eventually gave up on those rulers and achieved democracy, where the people, or at least the majority, finally matter. So, the real question is, how did they achieve their freedom? How dictators shifted to democracy? It's a fascinating question, and I have good news. We actually have some answers. Yes, this is an article written by some political scientists, scholars, but don't worry, you don't need to remember their names. But for reference, I'll leave their names in the description, so you are interested, you can read the article yourself. So, how are the democracies achieved, or how the transitions happened from authoritarian regimes to democracies? There are many answers, but today we will focus on one particular article. This article makes a bold argument. Democracy isn't really achieved by the people. Instead, it happens when authoritarian leaders themselves, who own or control people's freedoms, they decide to let go, lead their societies toward democracy.
Democracy is flawed. She is not perfect. But democracy. I love you.
That is the answer. Simple, done, finished. But do you agree? If yes, well, you can leave now. But if you don't agree with the argument, then stay with me, because together we are going to find out why these scholars say so. It is very paradoxical, because who owns power just refuse it. It's logically incorrect. So again, let's turn to our main question. How or when do authoritarian societies democratize? Or to put it even more simply, how do not free people become free people? How do non-democracies shift to democracies? Now, political scientists, scholars have offered a number of answers. There are the dominant explanations, and you can pick your favorite one, or if you have a completely different answer, feel free to share in the comments. Here are some of the most common explanations. First one. No more spoils to enjoy. Like, authoritarian leaders democratize when they run out of resources. If people can't pay taxes, or if the country has no wealth to extract from, then ruling side loses its motivation, because they cannot extract wealth from the natural resources. It can be one of the reasons. So, the second one, protest pressure. People rise up, protest and demand their rights, sometimes violently, until the rulers gave up. And the third one, the wealthy class demands it. A powerful business class, especially those whose wealth comes from markets, interest rates, may push for democracy because they need stable rules to run their business. And the fourth one, the dictator meets resistance when opposition leaders or movements challenge the ruler's legitimacy. Sometimes the dictators can simply silence or ignore them forever, and the price would be very expensive for them. That's the reason. And the fifth, no threat to the elites. If society already has relatively economic equality, resource wealth, or mobility, then democratization doesn't threaten the ruling class too much. People already live quite decently, so democracy doesn't mean dramatic redistribution. 6. Elite insurance. Regime insiders democratize if they have guarantee that they'll still have influence, power or protection even after the transition. 7. Military security. Military rulers may allow democracy if they are confident they can keep their professional roles and privilege after the regime change. It might happen. So these are the dominant perspectives. As you can see, there are quite few answers out there. What does our article actually say about all this? The authors claim that sometimes modern kings or dictators give up their power and wealth by themselves. Crazy, right? Think about it. You have massive wealth flowing from your country's natural resource or people's taxes going directly into your pocket. Would you suddenly decide, oh, that's enough for me and for my family, I'll just set aside now? No way. That's not how dictators usually behave. But here is a twist. According to our article, dictators aren't always the cartoonishly selfish villains, as we imagine. Instead, dictators may actually choose to democratize. But when? when they actually calculate that they can still stay in power through fair elections, if they are confident about it. So they think ahead, like, what if we start playing nice with the people, maybe we will win their hearts, and if we win their hearts, they will probably vote for us, even in a real election. They think like that, because there are some cases. But there is a catch. To make this work, they must hold on to a strong, loyal network. Because even after they give more power to the people, they need their allies in the government offices, institutions, and local networks to protect them. These loyal friends become their safety net. So, these are the arguments. Loyal networks and the confidence. So, what do you think? Do these arguments usually explain how dictators behave during transition periods? The authors illustrate this with two fascinating cases: Taiwan and Ghana. Yeah, they are very interesting cases, because both of these countries are democracies today, but what is striking is that they became democratic even though they weren't surrounded by other democracies. They stood out as lone democratic islands in their regions. No democrats, no neighbors. And in both cases, the authoritarian elite themselves led the transition. They introduced elections, competed fairly, and even managed to stay in power for a while after democratization. But first, they moved towards electoral democracy and eventually then toward liberal democracy. But they were the authoritarian, centralized governments. These stories give real-world proof that sometimes, yes, authoritarian leaders really can lead their societies toward democracy. But we are not sure about this claim because there are no enough proof cases, but this is what this article says. To conclude, what is the lesson? We can say bad guys are not always completely bad. Sometimes, willingly or not, they end up helping others. So, if you live in a society where you can choose your leaders and speak freely, appreciate it. However, if you live in a society where leaders cannot be changed through fair elections and where you feel constant pressure from the government or police, then stay positive, stay strong, and stay awake. Thank you for joining me today. I'll see you soon with another complex academic article, but explained in a very simple story style. Thank you.
Democracy is flawed. She is not perfect. But democracy. I love you.